Hi, ethics students. This is Dr. Bowen again, and welcome back. I just wanted to summarize why Immanuel Kant is so important in the world of ethics and in the world of philosophy. We'll talk about other scholars, but really we spend a lot of time this semester talking about Kantian deontology, and that's because its influence has been profound throughout the world, throughout the various disciplines. It touches almost every discipline that you can name. Why is it that prevalent? I think it's that good because it really is a comprehensive, complex, sophisticated, and rigorous analytical decision-making paradigm. In the world of analytical philosophy, we've left behind things like emotion-based decision-making or equating people with numbers. So deontology actually compensates for the weaknesses of the emotion-based approaches, including egoism, brutal selfishness, materialism, even Hume's emotion-based reasoning. And it goes further than that. It compensates for the utilitarian problems that we've talked about at great length, including equating people with numbers, having to predict the future, always going with majority rule and therefore reinforcing a status quo, ignoring the needs and principled arguments of a minority, equating people with numbers, and always thinking in terms of outcomes rather than moral principle. So we see that this is a consequentialist-based philosophy. When we move to deontology, we now are in the world of non-consequentialism. So utilitarianism is outcomes and consequence. Deontology is moral principle. And to most ethicists, that rings very true in terms of we're actually studying ethics now rather than the potential number of people helped or harmed by a decision in the consequentialist world. Now we're dealing with actual moral principle, and that is really what drives ethicists. So Kant gives us a rigorous framework to work through. He equates everyone equally in terms of all human beings are equally capable of rationality. Therefore, we're all equal, which is a very elegant way of saying that no one should be used, no one should be exploited or harmed, because we're all rational, we're all thinking individuals, and our moral agency gives us a duty under the moral law to behave like rational and reasonable individuals. Therefore, society can flourish and we can get closer to the hypothetical kingdom of ends. So Kant gives us moral autonomy under the moral law in which we're all obligated equally. You might think, well, we know what we should do, but sometimes people don't do it, and that's very true. But Kant's argument, even with criminals, was that they knew right from wrong and they knew what their moral obligation was. Making a choice to undermine or not follow their moral obligation by engaging in criminal behavior ultimately harmed themselves as well as harmed the rest of society. It did not maintain dignity and respect for the person's rational moral agency by upholding universal moral law. It wasn't generalizable. Because if everyone engaged in criminal behavior, of course, society would break down and cease to exist. We would have complete and total anarchy, and there would be essentially no civilization anymore. Everything would break down into looking out for yourself, and that would be a terrible system in which to live. We would attend to our basic needs at that point, food, shelter, and protection, rather than studying classes in a university, thinking about knowledge and philosophy, thinking about ways to develop the newest vaccine, studying the antibodies that can help defeat a certain illness, and so on. We would no longer be able to do those higher order things if we had deception on a routine basis. So that's just one example, but Kantian philosophy is extremely sophisticated and very capable of dealing with complex moral problems. That's why it's used as the basis for AI, ethical decision-making, and the codes of ethics that have been put in place for artificial intelligence. It's the only form of philosophy that we think is powerful enough to handle such a complex system. That being said, a lot of people misunderstand Immanuel Kant. They think that because there's a right and wrong in this philosophy, it's somehow a stern, absolutist, uncaring, duty-based paradigm. Nothing could be further from the truth. Those of us who've studied Immanuel Kant in detail realize that this was a philosopher who put first human dignity and equal rights for individuals, caring about people on an equal basis. Having to harmonize actions with a universal kingdom of ends also means that we're valuing ideal outcomes. So this is a very normative philosophy, but it's also very applied and very practical. Immanuel Kant himself was said to be a delightful individual. All accounts we have of him at the time say that he was convivial, that he was an ideal conversationalist. People, hostesses and hosts, fought to have him as a dinner guest because he enlivened every room in which he entered. And we have students who say that they never had a lecture that they heard from Immanuel Kant without leaving as better human beings as a result. So this is a very high bar for any thinker, for any philosopher. And one of our leading philosophers, who's a Kantian scholar, said that Kant endeavored to say something new about ethics. So think of the magnificence of that statement and of that undertaking. Can you say something new about ethics? Could you say something that no human being has ever said before, including philosophers who have discussed ethics their entire careers? It's a very difficult task, but I believe that Immanuel Kant was successful in giving the world a paradigm for morals and ethical decision-making that is extremely normative yet eminently practical. We can use it in our day-to-day lives, whether that's in public policy, government, public decision-making of any kind, as well as in your personal, private life. So I hope that studying Immanuel Kant has enriched you. I hope it has challenged your thinking on a universal level, on a level of dignity and respect, and on the level of good intention or acting with good moral will. From now on, test your actions with those three paradigms, and I guarantee you'll be a better decision maker because of that. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.